This early experience of regeneration had a strong impact on his imagination and connected the landscape at Haworth with his own deep past, making the differences between his current home and his childhood home less important than their shared regenerative power. He belonged, like Olivia, to a generation that felt it had been born on a planet irretrievably damaged by human greed and ignorance. The previous generation had perhaps been preoccupied by the prospect of nuclear annihilation, but for Francis, who was only 5 when the Berlin Wall came down, there was clearly no need for a war to lay waste to the biosphere. All that was needed was business as usual. In his first conversation with Olivia at the Megafauna conference, perhaps already exhilarated by their meeting but not yet prepared to express it directly, he couldn't help noticing the strangely cheerful, almost rivalrous way they had discussed the inevitable death of nature. They agreed that the Anthropocene age was more likely to mark the downfall than the triumph of its brash protagonist, or rather that they would both be parts of a single event, like a property developer cutting the ribbon on a looming skyscraper that bears his name, only to be buried moments later under a tsunami of rubble and dust. He told Olivia that during his adolescence, the weight of ecological doom was sometimes so great that he had felt the pressure of misanthropy and despair. When he read that the acidification of the oceans through the absorption of excess carbon dioxide would lead to the loss of 30% of marine life, the scale of the crisis invited a sense of impotence equal to his sense of horror. He felt that if each soldier killed in a war deserved to have his name inscribed on a monument, an entire species wiped out by hunting or the destruction of its habitat must deserve to have its name recorded as well. After admiring endangered species in captivity, a hall of extinction would provide a solemn and natural finale to a day at the zoo. In his early 20s, the antidote to his sense of dread was to join other eco-warriors in clandestine operations releasing beavers into Devon rivers in the middle of the night. The excitement and camaraderie was sometimes outweighed by an angry assumption that the rest of the human population was made up of consumerist zombies who regarded nature as little more than a recreational facility, a virtuous alternative to watching television on a cloudless afternoon. In Francis's experience, ecological angst was in fact almost universal, but most people found it hard to know what to do, other than eat and drink around the clock in a conscientious drive to fill as many recycling bags as possible. When he moved to Haworth and started to participate in the Wilding Project, he found himself transformed by the transformation taking place around him. The paradox of forcing a landscape to become wild was no longer a paradox in the Anthropocene age, which was bound to reverse man's absorption in nature's rhythms and force nature to mimic favorite human narratives. Wilderness, after being exiled from paradise, could find salvation in national parks and conservation areas. It was too late to let it be itself, but it could be legally exempt from exploitation, placed beyond the reach of utility, and as a place of outstanding natural beauty like Quantex, acquires some of the glamorous self-justification of art.